Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ottr Culture Podcast. This is the number 4 episode in our Movember campaign, and we're joined with the very spiritual, kind-hearted and aspiring man that is Ash Zuberi. Dan, what do we talk about?
We are very much joined by Ash. It's a really holistic, spiritual podcast, one that I've really enjoyed doing.
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed them all. But yeah, it's nice. We speak about Ash's kind of journey. He lived in Kuwait for, was it 7 years?
Yeah.
7 years he lived in Kuwait, being a DJ over there. And he went from the highs of being a DJ in Kuwait, coming back to London and having some episodes over in London that didn't really serve him too well. And then we kind of talk about his journey whilst in London to a better place where he is today.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great episode.
It is, and he spoke about some very, very interesting books, which I'm sure we'll check out, along with some spiritual meditation, but it's definitely worth a listen.
It is. Yeah, I think you're going to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it,
Then let us know.
yes. Have a great day.
Ash Zuberi.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm all right.
We've obviously had a podcast before. I guess that was 2 formats or iterations of the podcast ago. You were one of the OG guests
I think I was.
on the Ottr Stories podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it's called? Yeah.
Back in the day.
And it's now the...
Hashtag Ottr Culture Podcast. The podcast status of what it is now is all about our company and our people. Back then it was just Ben and I interviewing different people because it was only Ben and I.
Yeah.
But now the team's grown, so yeah.
There's
And we're at desk.
Yeah, there's a culture to show now, I suppose, instead of just what me and Dan get up to on a daily basis, which is a bit nicer.
Yeah, very nice.
But I guess, Ash, give us a brief laydown, who you are, what you do, and then I guess we'll jump into what you used to do.
Yeah, sure. For those listening, my name's Ash Zuberi. I am the director of a company called Easy Living Property, and I'm the founder of the group, the HMO Group, which is the largest HMO group on Facebook at the moment. Mm-hmm. And basically what I do is all property related. It's property investment. And we specialize in the HMO market, which is houses of multiple occupancy. Been doing that for about 15 years or so. And that's it. That's what I do.
Sweet. And I know for a while you were into the music scene, a DJ.
I was indeed.
Tell us about that and how you got into it and then where it took you.
Okay, so it happened by accident. I was always DJing when I was younger. I loved music from a very young age. So, a bit like Dan, reggae and soul were always there in the background growing up as a youngster. And as I grew older and older, my fascination with vinyl and mixing the music got more and more. And I was always surrounded by it as well. I had cousins who had 12, 10 turntables and everything, and they were DJing and stuff like that. So I was always it was always hanging around me, So the passion for it grew and grew and grew. And then I did a couple of parties here in the UK, and then that sort of fizzled out, and I got a job in Kuwait, which is in the Middle East. If anybody knows, you must know because of the war and everything. But I was there before the war. And somebody there, this is a very long story cut short, somebody there heard that I was a DJ, asked me to do their birthday party, and I literally did it with 2 cassette decks. That's how intense it was back in the day. And off the back of that, I got recommended to other places and et cetera, More and more people were like, come on, you need to do our party. We heard about that one. Mm-hmm. And then I got my own decks and, progression. And or progress, and then a girl heard that I was doing quite well, and she said, can you do my birthday? And I said yes, and it turned out that girl was the director of the only English radio station in Kuwait. So that's a big thing out there. It was the Ministry of Communication was where I was working now, and I'd have to go there. And basically I ran a night on Friday, Saturday nights, which wasn't even done before. All the DJs there left by 4:00 in the afternoon.
Really?
Yeah, there was no shows after that. It was all automated. So I was rocking up at the studio at like 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening, and going on till 1, 2 o'clock, and bashing out house and garage and drum and bass. And obviously that blew the lid off the whole thing. And I started doing more parties, and I was exposed to a scene that not a lot of people get to see unless you live out there and you know the right people. Unfortunately, I got to do some serious parties and meet some lovely, lovely people. It's such a beautiful vibe out there that a lot of people don't get to see.
Because obviously, like Kuwait, you don't think parties.
No.
That's not the first thing that comes to my mind when I think Kuwait. So how did, like, when you started doing these evening shows on Fridays and Saturdays? Because I think this will help with the story. How did that transpire into the parties you got invited to? Was it just you almost became like a VIP within music, would you say?
No, it was a slow progression. So imagine my first party is this guy I know, and I'm using cassette decks. And then that slowly progressed to other birthday parties, which then went to proms. In the Middle East, they follow the American culture quite a bit in certain aspects. Even in the English schools will have a prom, and then you have the American schools and the French schools. So all these schools would have their, sort of end of year, you're finishing your GCSEs or O-levels group would have their prom, and then they'd have their after party.
Yeah.
And these kids would also have their own private parties to call their friends over. So then I started doing loads of these. And then you realize that they have parents and their parents are like, oh, hold on, I want to do a party for my age group. And then that builds up. And then you're doing all these crazy parties for different kinds of people.
Yeah.
And then that led to, doing certain parties for some quite influential people, and it just went from that, and then I remember distinctly one party where, we were given coordinates in the middle of the desert. I think I've told you this one before. And, I remember driving up, and it's literally in the middle of the desert, and they've got this huge tent, and you can see all the headlights going into the desert, and, there's like 300-400 people, and they had literally built an Irish bar. That's what it reminded me of, because they had the old barrels there, they had the things there, and I'm standing there, and we're in the middle of the desert. I've driven like an hour and a half to get here. So how did they set this all up?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Was there a genre of music that hit off over there more than any other? And was there genres of music that they weren't into? Because this is the beautiful thing about music, right? Is you can go to like a completely different country and you can still drop garage,
Sure.
techno, whatever, and there's still a community that loves it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you surprised by that?
I a little bit, because I'd been going there over the years, ever since as a kid. You could see what they were playing, and it was kind of following our, music culture, where we were like heavily on R&B and hip hop with the American influence. And don't get me wrong, there's probably people there that liked heavy metal and all that. So musically, they're pretty good, right? But they did follow the American culture more. However, there's a good contingent of people, like I told you, that the English schools are there, and people educated come over here, and they have their parents here, so they're coming over here every year. So garage and drum and bass and all the house music was influential as well. What wasn't happening at the time was the house music and the garage and the drum and bass wasn't being played as much, and that's when I stepped in and did a takeover, basically, because the R&B and the hip hop was being taken care of during the day constantly, and that was the hitting point. They were like, this guy, he's not just playing that, he's also dropping
new genres.
Yeah, I remember dropping Prodigy.
Which song?
What was it called again?
Firestar?
Yes, Firestar. Sorry,
Yeah.
On New Year's Eve, at a New Year's Eve party.
And they'd not heard it before.
They'd heard it, but no one would. I don't think I'd heard a DJ ever in that country pick that song for the 12 o'clock
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I did, and they went nuts. Absolutely. There's a picture that I have of, just people going absolutely crazy. Obviously, we didn't have phones to take pictures and video and all that. So this was just a random shot, and you can see them.
Just
and I
magic.
remember, it was magic. It was a magical moment. And you're in the middle of the desert, right? And you're entertaining all these different cultures and people, and the song, right? Prodigy of all people.
Yeah.
Firestar.
You must have such like a nice nostalgia when you hear that song now. It must
Oh
take you
yeah,
back.
I do. When what's his name passed away?
Keith.
Yeah, Keith.
Yeah.
That was the thing I put out there was, he reached in those places, he and everyone knows where they've reached as a group and everything, but that night was special.
Yeah, I guess you don't really realize it now. That's how far your songs can get played. Like desert raves and stuff. So how long in Kuwait? How long were you out there doing that for? It was a couple of years, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the peak of that was from 97 to 2005.
Wow. Okay, so good 8 years strong then.
Yeah.
And what? And then you came back to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
What made you come back? Obviously it sounds like you're living the life, right?
Yeah, I was living the life, and something happened that abruptly stopped that situation. I think I was living in a little bit of a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't returned to the UK at all. I hadn't gone to anywhere. I'd come to Amsterdam and Europe, but I hadn't visited home. I made Kuwait my whole life basically, and it was really intense. And something happened, which I don't want to go into too much today, maybe another time. But it made me come. It forced me back here, and when I came back here, that's when everything changed, and I was like, oh my god, where have I been for the last few years? I've been in this bubble doing my thing, and the whole world is completely different.
Yeah.
Such a culture change, I bet.
Oh, massive. When you don't come home for that amount of time, everything was different. I'd missed so much, and I'd been completely absorbed by the desert, basically.
So coming back then, day one in the UK.
Yeah.
Where were you mentally? Would you say?
That's the funny thing. I didn't know. Right? It went. We're doing this thing about mental health, and I didn't know. I just came back. I remember having thoughts of, oh shit, if I go back, I don't know how I'll be. But it was like a side thought, it didn't overtake me. And then when I got back, in the couple of days, that I was back, in fact, a few more, probably about a week or two, then things started to, unravel. And then I realized there was an issue.
And when you say unravel, what do you mean?
So, normal things, you're not thinking straight. Your behavior isn't on point. Where you were a few months ago throwing parties with, hundreds of people dancing. And now you're in this house in the middle of London, and you walk in the streets and you're like, what am I doing here? What is the meaning of life? All these things start to rotate around your mind.
Like lost purpose almost.
Yeah, completely. And then it's crazy. It's crazy. But I think, I think we're getting to that point where we're going to open this box up. I think there's anyone with mental. The first thing I want to say outright is my story is very weak compared to others. Right? There are a lot of guys and girls out there suffering from mental health that have had their history is crazy, right? And that's the thing. I think there's episodes that people have in their life which build up to a point where everything explodes, and that's what happened with me. We had the first Gulf War when I was there, and then you go through all of that, then you see people die, and then you don't realize, people that you've gone to school with and everything, you don't know whether they're alive or dead. And that has an effect, right? These are your school buddies, people you've been grown up, and suddenly next minute, that you're in a war and nobody knows if they're going to live or die, right? And then the second time you have another Gulf War and you're actually there and the bombs are going over your head. And then all the other factors in life that you go through, relationships, parent issues and all that. I think it's a build up, and then there's a point where, something happens and it triggers. And I think that trip back for me, being in this bubble where I had closed off all these thoughts and not really listened to what I was feeling, and just living this amazing life DJing, it had an impact. That opened the Pandora's box. And then I was in a place where I was walking the streets basically. I remember I was with my sister, and I said to her, look, I'm going to go out, get a magazine or some chocolate or something. And I remember going down to the high street, and I walked to the sweet shop, went in, didn't know why I was there, walked out, crossed the road, went back towards my sister, crossed the road, went back to the sweet shop, crossed the road, and I did that 3 or 4 times. And on the 3rd or 4th time where I'm going back, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
You know, what? I've just gone round in a circle. This ain't you know, bing, bing.
Yeah.
And I quickly went back to my sister and I said, listen, man, you know, I've just walked around in a circle on the street. Something's wrong. Something is not right. That's not me. And luckily, fortunately, you know, my sister's always been on my side and she has medical background and stuff. And, you know, straight away she said, you need to, you know, seek some medical help. And that's what I did. You know, the NHS, let me tell you, they are, for all the flack they get, when you really need them,
They're there.
they're there.
Yeah.
You know, and they put me through the system. It's a great system. You know, they assessed me. They found that I had PTSD, which is
Wow. Okay.
post-stress
Traumatic stress
disorder. Yeah. Which it was like, hold on, don't soldiers get that? What are you talking about? How can I have that? And it's all these weird things, right? But they diagnosed it and they tell me, well, no, you know, you can have very intense incidents in your life that can make you feel that way. And I think anyone who's listening out there, right, that it's easy for me to say, and you know, I guess life experiences and the people you're around, it's so important that you realize that you have an issue, and that once you do and you accept it, you actually go out and do something about it.
Yeah.
Right. It's so important. I was lucky, like I said, and I didn't realize this until I got to group therapy. So this is why I started with, I might be, you know, irrelevant in the story, but you know, like I said, the NHS put me through the process. I got to see the doctors and they assessed me and told me about this PTSD and how it's going to be treated and blah, blah, blah. And I went through all the therapy. You know, this was like a year of therapy and assessments and back and forth and everything. And then it ended in group therapy. And I remember that group therapy. I sat in this room with 6 other people. And let me tell you, you know, they had issues that were just not even close to mine. You know, these people were scarred heavily. You know, you're talking about abuse and all kinds of things. And I realized then, you know, I listened to all of them and I stayed I think it was a 6-week program. And by the 3rd week, I remember going in there and saying, thank you very much to all of them. You've helped me all a lot. I gave them all a copy of The Secret. And I said, that's it, I'm done. And I left. And I remember the doctor saying, no, you need to finish. And I said, no, I'm done. I'm ready. Only because I realized my position within that group, which then amplified like a million times, right? Because then you realize, okay, you're tiny in this mess of mental health that's out there.
So did it, the acknowledgement of what other people had gone through had almost, I don't want to use the word cured, but it helped you understand or
really.
make logic of it, I suppose.
Totally. Because you had people there, you know, and let's not forget, let's if you looked at the table, you had somebody who was over 60, you had a teenager, you had 2 girls, you had women, mothers, right? And, you know, hearing their story and their background and what they're going through, you know, puts you into place. Right.
So was it made you feel that your mind had made the problem worse than it was, and hearing those stories had made you think, actually, it's not so bad? Is that?
I think it was a progress.
Right.
Don't forget all the treatments, and I had been seeing a doctor one-on-one, and in this all escalate. Once you pass all these places, you get to that group therapy. You know, it wasn't
a long time.
It takes time, whatever, you know, 6 weeks or whatever they entail. I remember it going on for a whole year, let's say, you know, my whole issue. And then waiting for dates to get seen and blah, 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 and then going back and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And, yeah, you know, it was a whole situation where you realized, okay, I'm reading, right? You know, I got to say thank you to a friend of mine called Ben Harrington, who gave me The Secret and a few other books, Conversations with God, which sounds a bit weird, but do read it if you can. and definitely read The Secret.
That's the Law of Attraction book, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Right,
is.
yeah.
But it's not just that. I mean, if you're in a mental health situation and you read that book, you know,
It does things for you.
yeah, it does
'Cause it
things
changes your mindset about thinking.
completely. You know, and Conversations with God as well. I mean, that's a crazy book, which I recommend to anyone. And the title is not as crazy as it sounds. It's not all about, you know.
Yeah.
And these books, you're reading these books, and then you're having these assessments, and you're moving around, and you know, your mental strength starts to come back, your confidence comes back, your understanding of why you're here, and what your purpose is sort of comes back as well, right? And that was, and then that accumulates with that, you know, session. You sit there and you're like, oh my God, you know, I am nowhere near these guys. I think I've improved.
Yeah. You've built on it. Yeah.
I've built, and these guys are still somewhere where they need these sessions, they need more time, etc., etc. So, you know, all I could do was say thank you and give them those books because it helped me.
And when you got the diagnosis of PTSD, did you find relief in that, knowing that there was something, you had a name to put to the feeling?
Yeah, massive, huge. Like, you know, walking around a street in a circle,
Yeah.
you know, and playing in front of hundreds of people as a DJ, and then not knowing why you've just walked in a circle, it fucks with your brain.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, and you know, I went to my sister, and I remember that day going, listen, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, and then everything collapses around you, your confidence,
Yeah.
you know, what you want to do in life, why am I here? You know, it's like a little mini, what is it, midlife crisis, or, you know, what they call a breakdown, or, you know, all that stuff, all that I was feeling. This is all that I was feeling. And then I remember when they told me, I was like, wow. And I remember what she said, the doctor, they said, you know, you've got all these memories. Consider them like bed sheets. Every memory that you have, good or bad. And what you've done is just thrown them into the cabinet. And they're all messed up. And these triggers are just throwing them around and making you confused. And what we're going to do is take every sheet out one by one, open it up, fold it back up, and put it back into the closet. And,
That's
you know,
nice.
when you hear these things, you know, and she's relating that to good and bad memories. And, you know, there are little triggers. And that's why I said it's not just one little thing. You know, whatever happened to me in Kuwait that made me come back, you know, by the time I had finished with these doctors, there were the whole issues around parents and relationships and how I was, you know, as a young child, you had issues and stuff like that. And then, you know, you start to put those back together, you confront them, you know, you talk about them, put them back in, and then you say, right, I'm done, you know, I've addressed that issue.
That's such a nice analogy of taking, because that's what your mind feels like in those moments. It's just, well, fucked, really.
Yeah, basically.
And the idea of someone being able to say, look, it's shit now, but we are going to almost reorganize your mind again. That's brilliant.
It was, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's closure in that alone.
Massive. And that's why I said, you know, it's easy for someone to say, once you recognize the problem and you have one and you admit it, then when these people start telling you, right, you're suffering from this, and then I can talking to you, your memories are messed up like bed sheets. You know, we're going to put them back. This is all relief. You know, it adds confidence. You start to build up your recovery. And again, anyone listening out there, if you're in a bad way, you know, it takes time. It's hard work. It wasn't easy. You know, I think I needed 2-3 years, you know, and there were highs and lows in that time. You know, I wasn't getting therapy every day, you know, and in the middle I'd do all kinds of silly things and get drunk, do drugs, go out, trying to relive, get that high. It didn't work. You know what I mean? And then you get back to some normality, but it's very powerful once you realize that you have an issue and they start to diagnose it and you know, help you to recover.
Did you find, I guess it's more of a question for how it's been since, but, and you don't have to go into the specifics of what these bed sheets were, but did you manage to take them out and fold all of them and put them back, or were there some ones that you couldn't, or do you feel like the wardrobe's neatly organized now for you, or?
I think it is. Nothing's ever perfect,
Yeah.
right? We will face more difficulties down the line. We all do, right? There's good days and bad days. But that episode there, that's done. Right? That moment in time which you want to call a midlife crisis or a complete breakdown in mental health and a collapse to the point where, you know, a guy's walking around the street in circles. You know, you see people like that, they're lost. And they do all kinds of silly things, right? They can get themselves into all kinds of trouble. And I could have gone that way.
Yeah.
You know, if I didn't have the support or the guidance or people helping me. And in those days, I don't remember anyone talking about mental health.
No.
Right?
No.
There was no podcasts. There was no one growing mustaches and beards and saying, hey, you know, listen to men, we got issues.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate, and there's a lot of people out there that weren't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I guess the nice thing is the NHS gave you the tools to fold them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
and
yeah,
and now that's why, and I think that's why it's so horrible to go into it for the first time. It's because all you have is this messy wardrobe. Well, you don't even have the analogy, which is the worst bit, and you don't know what to do. You know, and it's like that makes it 10 times worse, is the unknown of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
During that period as well, you said you had The Secret, the book, which is The Secret. You had your sister. Were there any other kind of really significant pillars that kind of helped you or supported you among that time, and how important were those things?
Yeah, I think all my family, friends that I had, like I mentioned, Ben, you know, this is a guy I met in a record shop after I'd come back, and we just got talking. And through that, you know, bless him. And he was, you know, 10, 20 years younger than me, or 15 years younger than me. And this guy's telling me, you know, you should read this book. And he, you know, he heard, he didn't know everything, but he, you know, I'd fill him in on a couple of things. And then he passed me this book. And, you know, I had other people around me that time as well, like my sister and other cousins and stuff who would advise and give me support. And every little bit helped, you know. I remember going clubbing, you know, and it wasn't as great as it was, but I guess that helped a little bit in the progression. I remember going into the park, riding my bike on a really hot day, not working, on the dole, in this recovery period, waiting for my you know, next appointment, and reading The Secret, you know, in the middle of the park. I never forget that.
Can we talk? Let's talk about The Secret as well, because I think it's a book that we've all. I think you've read it. Yeah, I think I've read it, and so your experience with it. So it was a book that you got handed, you know, in a record shop. You didn't know much about it, and then what was your kind of journey from there? What were the feelings and the thoughts from that?
Yeah. So when you start reading it, and it starts telling you that if you think about anything in your mind, and then that becomes a reality, and your mindset is not, I want to be a millionaire. It's like, I need to get healthy. I need to fucking recover. You know, I want to be a good human being again. I want to love again. I want other people to love me. I want to be kind. You know, you'd make all these lists of things that you've never done before. All right. And that's the kind of effect it had, you know. And then when you do that and you write these things, because one of the exercises in that was to, you know, sort of write the things that you're grateful for, you know, and you start just being alive, having parents, you know, being able to wake up in the morning and eat, all these little tiny things that suddenly matter so much. That's the kind of effect that book had, you know. And don't forget, none of us was exposed to this before. No one had written a book like this, you know, or maybe they had, but I didn't know. I wasn't around that kind of stuff.
In a way that's so easy to congest as well.
Yes. It was so basically written, and you could just read it straightforward and take it all in. And that book, along with the others that I mentioned, had a huge effect, you know. And they made me do these exercises, and the exercises are not just what you're writing down, but that while you're reading them, your mindset is triggering and going, oh my God. And I remember there was one exercise which everyone tries to do, is the parking spot. I don't know if you read the book. Yeah. If you really think about it, you know, you'll get the parking spot that you want in a shopping center or whatever. Loads of times, you know, literally. And call it, you know, you can call it whatever you like, right? Yeah. But there were moments where I was literally trying to do that, and it happened. Yeah. You know, and I got the parking spot, and you'd be like, holy shit. Yeah, you out. Oh my God, this cannot be real, you know? If I do this with money then, and if I do that with my health, will it happen? And I can tell you you know, there is no magic formula, right? This is what the brain can't understand, and none of us can accept, is that if we say I want £1 million or I want a successful business, it's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
right? But I was here in 2005 and I went through that 2006 and 2008 and all those things I thought about, I want to be healthier. I want to be, I want to make my life here, recover. I want to have a relationship. It's now 2022 and I can tell you, my brothers, half of those things have come to fruition,
Yeah.
They're reality. And it's crazy how that universal thing works. And that came from that book,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, it's something that I'm always trying to.
Dan spearheads that kind of mentality here.
Yeah.
The PMA mentality, positive mental attitude. It's I'm like, I'm not. I feel a bit, I get this a lot, and I always give these guys shit about it. But I feel like I've got a bit of a cold coming on.
Yeah.
Like just by having that mentality, for me, it's like you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, totally.
I feel like I've got a bit of a cold coming on. I don't know if I'm very well. I'm like, I'm fucking fine.
Yeah.
Like I've not got a cold coming on. I've just got a bit of a sniff, but it's fine. I'll be over it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And by having that bit of a positive mental attitude on something like that, will kind of drive you forward. Which is a bit different to the book, but for me, like just having that is
It's the same premise, isn't it?
yeah.
Totally.
It's just really ironic when Dan got COVID and bless him, he was really ill. And I was like, PMA, mate, just think your way positively out of it.
Yeah, I dislocated my shoulder like 6 weeks ago. And Ben was like, "Oh, how's your PMA doing now, boss?" Whilst my shoulder is like hanging out.
Yeah. Well, you can laugh, but that's the great thing about it, right? Because I think it's the true thought, and it only has to happen once. So you can sit there and go, "Yeah, I'm going to be better," and you guys can laugh about it. But there could be a moment when you're on your own, or in bed, or taking a dump, and you think it once that my shoulder's going to get better, and it's that thought. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to get that clear, thought. Because I can sit here and say I want to be a millionaire every day.
Yeah.
Right, in my mind and everything. But it's this is what the book says, right? It's that one pure thought that you think, and that will go out into the universe and make things better. It's a very hard thing to. What's the word I'm looking for?
Not almost like explain or. The way I interpreted it from the book was like, it's not so much, I want to be a millionaire, right? And then I'm going to become a millionaire. It was more, if I think this enough, it will influence my decision making enough and influence my actions enough that eventually something like that will happen.
Yeah.
And I think that it's almost like, look, I hate using the millionaire one because it's such a cliche, but let's say healthy or married or married, And it's like getting married is step 100. Step 1 is thinking, I want to be married. Step 2 is thinking, what do I want in a partner? Step 3 is, dating, and it's like that. Step 1 is so important because it puts you on the journey. It's what they say about business. Like the hardest decision in business is just to start, and then once you're starting, you're running. And you can make all the bad decisions in the world, but you're doing something. Yeah. And that's kind of how I think about it. It's like, as long as you understand what the goal is, or you're thinking about the goal, decisions will have some sort of indirect way of making themselves go that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. I think it's practice, right? The more you practice it, the more you say it. I'll give you another example, which I know is clear. I was having some really bad relationships. Being a DJ and in a nightclub is not the best place to get a girl that you want to end up settling down with. No disrespect to anyone. I'm sure that some people have had that, but I didn't. I wasn't having that luck. I was having all kinds of issues. And I remember distinctly going off the whole dating scene and women because it was causing me so much stress. And I was already in a bad place, right? So imagine you got all these issues mentally and now you're having issues relationship wise. It's not a good mix, right? It can send you really overboard, and it did in some relationships. And I remember sitting there and going, sending a message to the universe and saying, please give me a wife with a kid, whatever way that happens, let it come true. And I ended up with Ari and Caleb. And that wasn't planned, man. That came out of nowhere. It's a very spooky story. That wasn't no dating app. That was just things, a whole load of elements and pieces moving together to put that thing into place.
Almost by accident, wasn't it?
Totally. And I'll always say that. And I used to tell my dad that, he goes, yeah, you need to, find a more amazing woman. And I said, listen, the universe gave me this woman,
Yeah.
right? I asked for it. I asked for a wife and kid, and this is what I got. And that was quite a big episode in my life.
And Conversations with God. What's the premise on that? Because I haven't read that. I don't think you have, Dan.
Yeah.
But be keen to learn about it.
So I can't remember. To be honest with you, I can't remember, but it was a great book, which I do recommend you. I think it was about, it's a story of where this guy is trying to have this conversation, or how it would go by if he was talking to God. And it's an incredible book because it's all about mindset. Again, it's kind of like The Secret, but totally different.
Okay.
And I do recommend it. I'm sorry I didn't prep for that.
That's fine.
But you can all look it up and get a preview.
Yeah.
Definitely do it. Because and I think there's 2-3 parts to it. He went on to another one, but the first one was enough for me.
Yeah.
But it was part of that journey.
And with your with the things on The Secret about, I guess, not so much wishing for things, but speaking about things to the universe, are there things that come into your head now that you're speaking for or putting out there that you hope come true?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Like now it's practice.
Yeah. So is it something you do like on a everyday 8 a.m. or is it just a lifestyle? Are you doing it all the time throughout the day?
So I've tried to do it in the mornings. I try to wake up early and do a bit of meditation. And in that meditation, I'm doing stuff, in my mind about health and well-being and stuff like that. And then definitely at night as well. So before I go to sleep, I always put my headphones on, trying to get into this meditative state and repeat some things that I've got in my head for the day or that have happened or that I want to see in the future. And if you really think about it, over the years, you've sort of sat there and you've gone, yeah, I want health. I want, to be able to travel, or I want a good business, or I want my mum to have better health, or I want my sister to be successful, or I want my wife to be in a more successful position, or I want my son to part. All these things, they accumulate into 3 things, right? And that is, you want health, you want wealth, and you want to be healthy. Did I say that twice?
Wealth, health, and healthy. Wealth,
No.
health, and happiness?
Yes. Sorry, happiness. So 3 things, health, wealth, and happiness. And that's the kind of, if I stay there, first thing in the morning and say, just these 3 things, everything else falls into place.
What's a good day on your books? Are you waking up? What time are you waking up? I want to know the Ash Zuberi daily routine.
Day in the life, yeah.
Yeah.
Day in the life.
So like the perfect day, like, when you finish a day and you've like, it's been a good day.
Okay.
But for you, does that start from the minute you wake up? But like if you wake up in the right mood, you're doing a little bit of meditation. Is that?
Yes.
What's that routine?
So there's a lot of things, technology has given us a hit, right?
Yeah.
And I come from a place where, when the phone rang, you didn't know who was, you had to answer it to find out who it was, right? And now you've got all these other people, all that you can see, and it's crazy. You've got a watch with the guy's face on it. And so if you wake up in the morning, my ideal thing would be to wake up and not touch the phone.
Yeah.
Right? And get into this position where, and this is what I've done, is I've woken up about 5 o'clock in the morning, put on some meditation and some mantras where I'm saying that I'm healthy and I'm, going to be a good person, and I'm, parents are going to be healthy and stuff like that. And I start stretching. The key to life, apart from mental health, is stretching, right? That's the top tip. And so by 5:30, 5:45, I've done my meditation. I've stretched my body out. I'm feeling relaxed and good. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I'll have a coffee.
Black coffee?
Bit
of milk sometimes?
Yeah, maybe a latte.
That's important for you, that bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
We need to know the full routine.
Yeah.
Tomorrow my day will be the Ash Zuberi day.
I used to do black coffee.
Yeah.
But I moved away from that now. I'm a bit of a latte person. But that's okay. So I'll have that
Yeah.
about 6 o'clock, and then I'll listen to some podcasts or some audibles.
Give us a few podcasts to listen to.
I have the latest one is How to Be a Productivity Ninja.
Oh, I've heard about this one. Yeah.
By I've forgotten the guy's name, but brilliant.
Okay, we'll search that. We'll search that.
Yeah, search that. Very good. Really helps. That doesn't put into play the 5 o'clock start with the meditation. I heard that through somebody else. And what I found there fascinating is if you're up at 5 and you do the meditation and you do the stretching and then you've done the audible as well, by 6:30, 6:45, you've done more than some people get done in half of that day, right? So that's my ultimate, and I did that, and I tried to do that, and I'm trying to do that every day. And then by, you've done the audible, you've listened to this thing that's enhanced your brain, told you how to make things better, you've made notes on it, action points, you know what I mean? And by 7 o'clock, I'm ready for the day.
Yeah.
Get to work, do my emails, bang, 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 get to see my son, say hello to the wife, have breakfast, blah, blah, blah.
What do you have for breakfast?
Porridge,
Yeah.
or eggs. I try and switch it up as much as I can. Mostly healthy stuff, but come the weekend, it's debauchery.
Out the window. Yeah. That's what weekends are about, though.
Yeah. You only live once, right? So you gotta enjoy. You can't go strict completely. It's I've tried it all, and I continue. But that's the ideal day. And then you work through the day, and then I try and get to the gym. I had again, this is a great thing about The Secret. I was injured, so many things, and oh mate, it's endless. The injuries I've got over the years trying to get fit and healthy. And just keep telling myself, look, I'll get better, it'll work, and then eventually I'm in a better place. So try and get to the gym, do a couple hours there, and then by 4-5 o'clock I'm ready for dinner. You sort of start to wind down. Dinner's about 6, and then you just chill with the family till the evening.
What time do you go to sleep? You try and go to sleep at the same time most days?
I do try and go. It's usually 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And up at 5.
Yeah, and up at 5.
How do you find getting up at 5, honestly? For the people who are normal, I'd love to do what you just described, but if I wake up at 5, 5 a.m. Ben is saying, fuck that.
Yeah. You need to... The body and the mind are easily programmable, right?
Yeah, okay.
Right? And once they get into a system and you get past that, I can't take it anymore. Let me tell you, you start to wake up yourself.
At 5.
Like, I remember, again, going back to The Secret, I remember sitting there going, please let me wake up at 5 o'clock. I want to wake up at 5 a.m. And like that, the next day or 2 days later, I'm up at 5 and my alarm hasn't gone off, and it's crazy. And then that becomes 4 sometimes. And it takes practice, and not every day is going to be perfect. Days you're going to go out on the weekend and all things are going to mess up the system. But if you can get 3-4 days of that going and don't feel bad, then let me tell you, it's an amazing feeling. Amazing to stretch the mind, stretch the body, take stuff in that educates you all before 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You're on fire.
Yeah. I've had days like that, just not on a habitual basis, I suppose. And I have always felt, fucking hell.
Yeah.
This is good, you know.
It is good. It's practice.
Yeah.
You can try and go to sleep at 9, but it doesn't work for me. I need to get that 10 o'clock.
It's a sweet spot.
Yeah. If I'm in bed at 10 and I'm more or less dozing off, those 5-6 hours are good enough for me. And then you can rest up. Don't forget, resting is very important, even with mental health. You can't keep going through the day, from 7 o'clock in the morning till 6 p.m. every day. It's impossible, and I really think a lot of people and companies now employ those tactics where you can just go off and sleep for an hour or 50 minutes. So resting during that day, you should put that in the office here. There you go.
Little bed.
Little sleeping booth.
Yeah.
We actually spoke about this today. We had a meeting for this this business park, and they have like rental offices and stuff inside. And we were driving back, and we were thinking, I wonder, like, our lease is nowhere near up here, but I wonder what we would put in. And we both were like agreement, like if we could have anything, we'd have the office, maybe like a little wooden lodge or something, or a big wooden lodge with a few studios in, and then we just have a spa,
Yeah,
like a gym,
Yeah.
spa, sauna.
absolutely.
Something more holistic, I guess.
Yeah.
It's more for the people because,
Yeah.
and I, like you say, a lot of companies are turning that way, aren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
Where
they
they're
are
looking
much-
after their people in a more holistic and lifestyle approach.
It would be awesome to get in the sauna at lunchtime, wouldn't it?
Oh,
Can you imagine
oh,
that
I'd love it.
at work?
Do you like saunas?
Yeah. That's a huge. I just learned the other day. I mean, I was doing saunas anyway,
Yeah.
and cold showers and
Oh,
cold.
Joss would be a big fan of you then.
Oh yeah, I'd love a cold. You know, the cold. Yeah, he knows. Right, he's winking at me over there. He knows the deal, right? The cold shower thing principle, which is now only now getting famous,
Yeah,
right?
Wim Hof.
Yeah, exactly, right. But I knew this from before. This is the strange thing. The body tells you things, right? I remember, being in the sauna when I was younger, and then if you jumped into the cold swimming pool, you'd feel like, whoa, amazing, right? Okay, so then the cold works, and you amplify that with a bit of a shower, maybe try that longer. Ice helps as well. And suddenly, hey presto. And now they've got all these stats about how great it is for you and all this stuff. So yeah, I do recommend the cold shower.
I think when we saw you last, you were about to go to the cryogenic
Yeah, done that.
chamber. How
Yeah,
was it?
That's brilliant. I've done cryo quite a few times.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's a next level. That's minus like 100 and something, for 3 minutes. It's brilliant.
What's the best? I was going to say, what's the most out of body experience you've had? Would you say it's around kind of spa experiences and like when you when you're in a cryogenic chamber, how does that feel? Is there a high that you get off something like that?
It's fucking cold. I'll tell you that.
Or even like floating, the floating
Yeah,
tanks.
the floating thing
I've heard
was
these are-
that was another level, right?
Yeah.
Because at one point I was literally like, this is what it must be like in space, And don't forget, you're naked in this capsule, all on your own.
Is it pitch black?
No. You can leave the capsule open because
Yeah.
some people get a bit digi. I close that, and there's this very little light that comes through, right? Or there's blue light from the water, very ambient, very chilled out, and you're literally lying there, with your hands out like that. Like you could lie there like a star, and you start making all these weird shapes, as if you're in space.
It's this like insane amount of salt in the water, isn't it? Which keeps you
Insane.
buoyant.
Float.
Yeah.
Super buoyant.
And they tell you just to lie there and be still, right? But the mind starts ticking over, right? And there is a point where I probably slept or passed out, but then I woke up, and then I'm like, okay, what do I do now? And then I remember,
still there?
yeah. Shall I start doing this? What happens if I move my body this way and that way? And you're just floating around, and it was crazy. And then you start to realize, wow, if I did this every week as part of a therapy, I'd be on bloody planet La La Land.
It's amazing, isn't it? That's just laying in a body of water.
Yes.
But like when we went away to Marbella,
Yeah.
and we went and we were doing meditation there and yoga every day. And I remember we did meditation. I think we both came out of it, or a lot of people came out of this
Yeah.
one meditation session where we were all like,
It was yoga, wasn't it?
felt like we went to a different place.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
incredible
It
for
is.
what meditation can
Yeah.
do for your mind
Yeah,
and for
totally.
your body, relax you to something else.
Yeah. Totally. All of that. Meditation, the floating tank, the stretching, these are all things that we've sort of forgotten along the way.
Majority of them are free as well.
Yeah, you can do them in your bedroom,
Yeah.
right? Turn on YouTube or whatever and get there. And they all help in mental health recovery,
Yeah.
which is what we're talking about.
I remember in that yoga session in Marbella, we had the yoga, and then there's like 10, 15 minutes after where you go into meditation. I think because you just did yoga, you're so relaxed and you feel good.
Yeah.
So slipping into meditation is so much easier.
Yeah.
And I remember I've had two experiences like this in meditation, but this one was crazy where it's almost like I went to this place where I made the universe in my head. Like I could see the planets forming. And I remember just having this smile on my face. And I was like, oh, don't smile because you're going to look like you're having a weird dream,
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop. I physically couldn't stop myself from smiling. I felt that much joy.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, fuck, this is what it's about. This is what I understand now.
Sure.
I remember thinking this whole time, like, I wish I could feel like this forever. It was like ecstasy,
Yeah.
but it was all in my head.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
You can meditate and go places and imagine things, and it's such a beautiful thing.
I think that's such a nice ender there.
Yeah.
It's so nice to have a chat on a more kind of holistic and body mentality kind of feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are key things in, it's not just about what the NHS can do and the doctors can do. Now we're in a place where we know that cold showers help. We know that saunas help. We know that meditation helps. We know spiritual awareness is such a powerful thing, and keeping the mind and the body pure and giving it time. We're so obsessed with the 9 to 5 and getting things done, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to be that obsessed with that, 5-10 minutes in a day to break, to give your mind and body some relief. Come on, man. You've got to find that time. Make that time.
Fuck.
So good.
I don't know about you, mate, but I want to go home and meditate. I'm inspired.
Yeah. That's why I got Ash onto his daily routine. So I need to replicate what Ash is doing. How can I do that? What are you eating every day? Eggs, perfect. I love eggs.
I'm going to come
I'm
in
vegan,
tomorrow.
but I love them.
Dan's going to have a bowl of porridge tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I've been up since 5.
Yeah.
I've stretched.
Yeah.
There it is. Thank you so much, Ash, for coming on.
Thank you, guys. My pleasure.